ChatGPT said, "Imagine standing alone in a dark forest. The air is thick, silent, and alive with unseen eyes. You sense something powerful watching you, something that will either destroy you or awaken you. That, my friend, is not a woman. That is your destiny disguised as desire." Most men chase. They run behind illusions, believing affection can be begged for, bought, or earned by approval. But what happens when you chase? You turn your back on yourself. You become the prey of your own longing. And the moment you do that, you lose the essence of what makes a man formidable. Machiavelli would whisper, "Do not chase, hunt." And Jung would nod in agreement, for the hunter is not driven by need, but by purpose. To hunt is not to possess. It is to awaken the archetype of power within you, the warrior, the king, the creator. The true hunter never begs for validation. He radiates such presence that the world bends toward his gravity. The woman is not his goal. She is the mirror through which he meets himself. Every pursuit, every rejection, every gaze exchanged in silence is an initiation into deeper self-awareness. Understand this. A woman's attraction is not captured through effort. It is summoned by essence. The more you chase, the more she flees, because you project need, not command. But when you hunt, not her, but mastery, discipline, vision, you become what she instinctively seeks. A man rooted in his center, unshaken by approval, untamed by fear. Machiavelli spoke of control, of strategy, of power shaped by perception. Jung spoke of shadow, of the hidden self waiting to be confronted. Combine the two and you find the ultimate truth. You cannot conquer what you do not first conquer within. The woman is a symbol, the external reflection of your own unlived potential. The chase outside is futile until you face the chaos inside. So do not chase her. Sharpen your mind. Forge your will. Enter your own darkness and make peace with it. Because the hunter who knows himself never runs after anything. Everything runs toward him. When Machiavelli speaks of power, he does not speak of ownership. He speaks of understanding, of knowing how to influence, how to direct, how to stand as a force that shapes rather than follows. In the same way, when we speak of hunting a woman, it must never be mistaken for pursuit in the ordinary sense. It is not the act of chasing footsteps through the forest of desire, but the cultivation of presence, of strength, of inner dominion. Hunting, in its truest form, is not about the capture of another being. It is about mastering the beast that lives within oneself. Chasing is external. It is born of need, of insecurity, of the illusion that fulfillment lies somewhere outside. The chaser is restless, constantly reacting, pulled by emotion rather than guided by purpose. He runs toward what he believes will complete him, yet every step only deepens his sense of lack. To chase a woman is to declare, silently but powerfully, that you do not yet possess yourself. You have surrendered your center to an external image, a projection of your own unfulfilled potential. But the hunter, he is different. The hunter stands still first. He studies the terrain, learns the rhythm of silence, breathes with the earth beneath him. His movements are deliberate, patient, controlled. He does not run wildly through the woods of life. He moves with the confidence of one who has tamed his impulses. In the psychological language of Jung, this is the man who has begun to integrate his shadow, to face the raw, instinctual forces that once drove him unconsciously. The hunter hunts not because he is desperate to possess, but because the act of the hunt itself reveals to him who he is. To hunt symbolically is to engage in a sacred dance between desire and discipline. The woman in this metaphor becomes the representation of something greater, the soul's longing for wholeness. Jung called this the process of individuation, the journey toward becoming a complete, integrated self. The hunt, therefore, is not about conquest. It is about transformation. Each moment of self-restraint, each decision to move with awareness rather than impulse, brings the hunter closer to his true nature. When a man chases, he is governed by emotion, by the primitive mind that fears loss and craves approval. But when a man hunts, he operates from awareness. He recognizes the power of his instincts, but does not let them rule him. He uses them as tools, as energy to be directed toward higher aims. Machiavelli would see this as the essence of strategy, to understand both the heart and the mind, and to rule them with wisdom. To hunt, then, is to become a strategist of the self. Consider how society often teaches men to chase, to seek validation through attention, through conquest, through the approval of women. This conditioning creates dependence. A man who needs constant affirmation becomes predictable, controllable, and weak. He loses his sovereignty. The Machiavellian man, however, knows that true influence arises from self-sufficiency. He understands that power does not beg, it emanates. To hunt symbolically means to cultivate this kind of energy, to become so grounded in self-worth that others are drawn in naturally, not because you chase them, but because your very being demands recognition. Carl Jung would add that this hunt is not without danger. To hunt the inner beast, to master desire without killing it, is one of the greatest psychological challenges a man can face. If he suppresses it completely, he becomes cold, lifeless, disconnected from passion. If he indulges it blindly, he becomes enslaved by it, consumed by obsession. The balance lies in awareness, in knowing when to move and when to stay still, when to act and when to observe. This balance is the mark of the true hunter. In every man lies both the chaser and the hunter. The chaser looks outward, desperate to catch what he believes he lacks. The hunter looks inward, using the pursuit as a mirror to see his own depth. The woman he seeks is not the end of the journey, but the reflection of his evolving strength. She becomes a symbol, a test, a mirror, a catalyst. Through her presence, he is confronted with his own insecurities, his own unrefined instincts, his own hunger for meaning. And this is where the lesson deepens. The hunt is not for her body, not for her affection, not even for her attention. It is for the awakening of self-command. To move through life as a hunter is to live with intent, to be conscious of every word, every glance, every emotion. It means to hold one's own power without needing to display it loudly. It means to be rooted in purpose so firmly that no rejection can shake your foundation. When you hunt in this sense, your energy shifts. You stop asking for permission to exist in someone's world and start building your own. You become selective, discerning, patient. You are no longer moved by surface appearances because you have learned to see beyond them, to see essence, not illusion. Women, like all people, are drawn to essence. They sense when a man has mastered himself, when he has faced his inner wildness and emerged as both warrior and sage. The hunter is not heartless. He feels deeply, but he is not ruled by feeling. He desires, but his desire serves his growth. He knows that true attraction arises not from pursuit, but from polarity, the magnetic pull between two complete beings who recognize strength in one another. And this recognition cannot exist without mastery. To hunt symbolically is to live consciously, to treat every interaction as an opportunity to refine your discipline and deepen your understanding of human nature. It is to know that love, like power, flows toward those who no longer chase it. The man who has mastered the art of the hunt becomes a creator, not a consumer, a king, not a servant of desire. He stands in his truth, commanding respect without demand, presence without pretense, desire without dependency. In this sense, hunting becomes an art form, a ritual of awareness, restraint, and purpose. It is the sacred path of turning raw instinct into refined strength, turning longing into creation, turning chaos into control. There is a silent but profound distinction between chasing and hunting, and this difference defines the very psychology of masculine energy. To chase is to move from emptiness, to act out of a craving for something or someone that promises to fill a void. It is a movement born out of lack. But to hunt is to move with direction, to act from a place of abundance, clarity, and purpose. The hunter's steps are measured, deliberate, and full of intent. The chaser's steps are frantic, reactive, and guided by fear. When a man chases a woman, what he is truly chasing is not her. It is a part of himself that he has lost touch with. He is chasing validation, proof of worth, confirmation that he is desirable or enough. The chase becomes a performance, a desperate attempt to be seen. But the moment validation is sought externally, power is surrendered. Jung would say that the chaser is under the spell of projection. He has placed his unlived potential, his own light, into the image of the woman before him. She becomes the embodiment of everything he wishes to be. Confident, complete, radiant, alive. He does not realize that he is not pursuing her essence, but his own reflection. The hunter, however, understands something the chaser does not. The hunter knows that purpose is magnetic, and that attraction is a byproduct of alignment, not effort. He moves not because he needs to be completed, but because he is already whole and seeks expression of that wholeness. In Machiavellian terms, the hunter is a strategist. Every action he takes is guided by intention, not impulse. He does not waste energy chasing shadows because he knows that influence is earned through composure and foresight. Chasing, at its core, is emotional chaos. It is a symptom of attachment to outcomes, of the fear of being unseen or unloved. When a man chases, he gives control to circumstance. He becomes reactive. If she texts, he's elated. If she doesn't, he collapses. His sense of worth fluctuates with every interaction. This volatility weakens him, not because emotion is weakness, but because dependency is. Machiavelli would observe that such a man is easily manipulated, for whoever controls his emotions controls his actions. Hunting, in contrast, is emotional sovereignty. It is guided by focus rather than fear. The hunter does not chase because he understands the natural laws of attraction. What is meant to align will align through presence, not pursuit. His attention is not scattered outward, but directed inward. He invests in purpose, in skill, in mastery. Every step he takes is calculated not for approval, but for evolution. The woman then becomes part of his journey, not the destination of it. In the Jungian sense, the hunter embodies the process of individuation, the integration of all aspects of the self into harmony. He faces his inner contradictions instead of projecting them. He recognizes that his yearning for connection is a reflection of his deeper need for unity within. Thus, his pursuit of a woman transforms into a pursuit of meaning. The relationship ceases to be a transaction for comfort and becomes an arena for transformation. When a man chases, he loses his center. His identity begins to orbit around her attention. Every gesture, every word is crafted to impress rather than express. This is the psychology of need, the craving for external affirmation to confirm internal value. But the hunter does not orbit. He anchors. He remains grounded in his mission, aware that the moment he abandons his path for anyone, he forfeits the essence that made him magnetic in the first place. Chasing often disguises itself as romance. It wears the costume of passion, of pursuit, of care. But beneath it lies fear, the fear of loss, of rejection, of being unseen. The man who chases says, "Please see me," while the man who hunts says, "I see myself." And that is the energy that draws others in. Jung would interpret this as the movement from unconscious dependency to conscious self-realization. The hunter's attention is not a plea, it is a choice. His energy does not beg, it invites. Purpose is the great differentiator. The man of purpose cannot chase because he has direction. His actions are not reactions, they are extensions of his vision. He understands that everything in life, including relationships, must align with his path, not replace it. Machiavelli might describe him as calculating, but in truth he is simply aware. He recognizes that love without discipline becomes chaos, that desire without structure consumes rather than builds. The hunter channels desire. The chaser is consumed by it. A man who chases places the woman above himself. She becomes the goal, the prize, the source of fulfillment. But a man who hunts understands hierarchy differently. He does not place her beneath him, nor above him, but beside his path. His purpose leads, his vision commands, and his connection with her must harmonize with that direction. Anything that pulls him off course, no matter how intoxicating, becomes a distraction. In the deeper psychological sense, chasing represents the ego's attempt to avoid its own emptiness. It is an escape from stillness, from confronting the void within. The hunter, however, has faced that void and made peace with it. He has looked into the darkness of solitude and learned to walk through it. This self-confrontation gives him an aura of calm confidence, the quiet certainty that he needs nothing to complete him. And paradoxically, that energy is irresistible. The hunter's purpose is not conquest, but clarity. His movements are not dictated by the reactions of others, but by the compass of inner knowing. He does not ask, "Will she like me?" but rather, "Am I moving in alignment with who I am?" His focus is never on winning affection, but on refining his essence. Because he knows that when a man lives with purpose, attraction is inevitable, not just from women, but from life itself. To chase is to scatter your energy outward. To hunt is to direct it inward, refining it into precision. The chaser lives in hope. The hunter lives in intention. The chaser waits to be chosen. The hunter chooses. The chaser reacts to the world. The hunter creates his own. And when a man begins to live from purpose instead of need, everything changes. His voice deepens, not in tone but in conviction. His gaze steadies, not in dominance but in awareness. His presence becomes heavy, magnetic, undeniable. He no longer moves through life trying to prove his worth. He simply embodies it. Because chasing is the language of scarcity, but hunting is the language of power. Niccolò Machiavelli understood something most men today have forgotten. Power is never given. It is taken through perception, precision, and presence. The world, he said, is not ruled by morality but by influence, by those who understand human nature and know how to shape it without being consumed by it. When applied to relationships, this principle becomes crystal clear. A man who begs for attention loses respect, but a man who commands presence earns attraction naturally. The distinction lies not in aggression or manipulation, but in the understanding of energy, control, and the art of perception. To command does not mean to dominate another person. It means to command yourself so thoroughly that others instinctively sense your authority. Machiavelli would argue that the strongest prince is not the one who rules through fear alone, but the one who governs perception, who knows when to appear gentle, when to appear firm, and when to withdraw entirely. A man's relationship with a woman, therefore, must mirror this delicate political balance. The one who chases, who begs, who pleads for affection or validation, exposes his weakness. He displays that he has no power over himself. But the one who commands, who holds his composure, who knows his value, who moves with quiet confidence, creates the aura of mystery that compels respect. Carl Jung would describe this as a man in alignment with his archetype of the king. The king archetype does not chase approval. He radiates authority because he has integrated his inner chaos. He knows his purpose, his domain, and his limits. He governs his emotions as Machiavelli's ideal ruler governs his court, with order, discipline, and wisdom. In the same way, a man who operates from his inner king does not beg for a woman's time or affection. He sets the standard through his actions, and those who recognize his value naturally align with him. To beg is to relinquish control. It is to project your power outward and depend on another for validation. The Machiavellian man never does this. He knows that human beings, by nature, respect what they must earn and disregard what is easily given. Thus, when a man makes himself too available, too eager, too desperate, he communicates weakness not verbally but energetically. The woman's subconscious reads this signal instantly. She may feel flattered for a moment, but soon instinct takes over. Attraction fades, not because she is cruel, but because biology and psychology both crave strength, stability, and mystery. The Machiavellian mind operates differently. He knows the importance of strategy, not deception, but deliberate intent. Every move he makes has purpose. His communication is not scattered with excessive emotion. It is measured, grounded, and direct. He is aware of how his energy shapes perception. Machiavelli wrote that a prince must appear virtuous even when necessity demands he act otherwise, not because deception is noble, but because appearance governs influence. Similarly, in the realm of attraction, a man must embody restraint. He must reveal just enough of himself to intrigue, but never enough to be fully predictable. Predictability kills curiosity, and curiosity fuels attraction. Command then begins within. It starts with emotional regulation, the ability to remain composed in uncertainty. When a woman withdraws, tests boundaries, or challenges your confidence, the chaser reacts with panic. He sends another message, makes another call, tries harder to prove his worth. The commander does the opposite. He pauses. He allows silence to speak for him. He understands that tension is part of the dynamic and that patience often communicates more power than action. In that stillness, he radiates control. He becomes the rare man who does not need reassurance, and that very independence is what draws others back toward him. Machiavelli believed that people are drawn not to goodness, but to strength. Not cruelty, but competence. A man who commands demonstrates that he can lead himself, and therefore can lead others. He does not need to manipulate because his focus is mastery. He studies his environment. He observes, he listens, he reads subtle cues, but he never compromises his integrity to gain affection. This is the essence of controlled strategy. to engage without attachment, to give without depleting, to move with awareness rather than impulse. The act of begging is inherently rooted in fear, the fear of loss, of being unseen, of being forgotten. The Machiavellian man transforms that fear into composure. He understands that losing a person or an opportunity is not failure if it means preserving dignity. He would rather command respect through silence than lose it through desperation. This is psychological warfare not against others, but against the self's weaker impulses. Jung would call this integration of shadow, the taming of the inner child that seeks constant reassurance. When that part of the psyche matures, power emerges naturally. To command in the realm of attraction also means to establish boundaries. Machiavelli warned that mercy without measure leads to ruin, and the same applies to affection. A man who allows his emotional boundaries to be crossed repeatedly without consequence erodes his own authority. A woman will not trust a man who cannot say no, for his lack of control signals instability. The Machiavellian man, on the other hand, draws clear lines not out of coldness but out of self-respect. He knows that boundaries do not repel love. They refine it. They separate genuine connection from manipulation. The art of command is subtle. It does not roar. It resonates. It does not demand attention. It earns it through presence. The man who commands walks into a room differently, his posture upright, his movements unhurried, his energy grounded. He does not need to announce his value, it is felt. People are drawn to him not because he tries to impress, but because he represents something rare: self-possession. Machiavelli would remind us that the prince's greatest weapon is perception. If you wish to inspire loyalty, you must embody certainty. The same applies to attraction. If you wish to be respected, you must first respect yourself so deeply that others cannot help but follow your lead. A man who begs conveys uncertainty. A man who commands embodies direction. The former asks for connection. The latter becomes the center around which connection revolves. In psychological terms, this is the shift from external validation to internal authority. It is the evolution from the boy who needs attention to the man who creates gravity. Women, consciously or not, test for this. They sense whether a man's confidence is authentic or performative. The Machiavellian man passes these tests not through words but through calm consistency. He does not explain his worth. He demonstrates it through restraint, composure, and integrity. To command, therefore, is not arrogance. It is the mastery of balance between power and humility, between passion and patience, between mystery and authenticity. It is to understand that influence flows not from force, but from unwavering self-control. Carl Jung believed that every man carries within him a hidden feminine counterpart, a psychic image he called the anima. This inner feminine is not a woman in the external world, but a symbolic force that shapes how a man perceives women, love, and beauty itself. When a man meets a woman who captivates him, it is rarely just her that he sees. He is encountering his own inner reflection, his unlived emotions, his suppressed creativity, his own soul calling to him through her form. This is why attraction can feel so overwhelming, even mystical. It is not merely a biological pull, it is the psyche attempting to reunite with its lost parts. The woman then becomes a mirror, not of who a man is, but of who he has yet to become. Jung taught that the outer world constantly mirrors the inner, and that every relationship is a dialogue between consciousness and the unconscious. The woman a man is drawn to reveals the qualities he most yearns to awaken within himself. If she is free-spirited, he may be repressing his own spontaneity. If she is deeply intuitive, he may have neglected his own sensitivity. If she is nurturing, it might point to his need to integrate warmth into his strength. The attraction, therefore, is not simply romantic, it is symbolic. It is the soul showing him through another what he must reclaim within. To chase a woman without understanding this principle is to misread the message. The man becomes fixated on her as the source of his fulfillment, rather than seeing her as the reflection of his own potential. He externalizes his longing and mistakes the mirror for the treasure. He runs after her affection, unaware that the feeling she awakens comes from within him. This is why no amount of possession ever satisfies, because he is seeking something internal through something external. Jung would say he is under the spell of projection. He has cast his inner goddess onto an external figure, and now worships her, believing she holds the key to his completeness. The hunter, however, understands differently. He recognizes that the woman he desires represents his own unclaimed power. He approaches her not as a savior or prize, but as a reflection, an initiation into deeper awareness. Each emotion she stirs in him becomes an opportunity for self-discovery. If he feels insecurity, he confronts his wounds. If he feels admiration, he studies the quality he admires and integrates it into himself. The interaction ceases to be a chase and becomes a form of inner work. He hunts not to possess her body, but to uncover his own soul. This is the essence of Jungian psychology. The outer relationship mirrors the inner one. Every woman a man is drawn to carries a fragment of his psyche, a fragment he must meet, understand, and integrate. The more he resists this truth, the more he repeats the same cycles of attraction and disappointment. He finds himself drawn to similar types of women, facing similar endings, feeling similar pain. He blames fate or circumstance, not realizing he is encountering his own reflection again and again, until he learns the lesson, that no woman can complete what he has not yet awakened within. In this light, hunting a woman takes on profound psychological depth. The hunt is not an act of aggression. It is an exploration of consciousness. To hunt is to move with awareness, to observe the interplay between projection and perception. When the hunter sees the woman, he also sees himself. He observes his reactions, his fantasies, his fears. He becomes a student of his own psyche. Machiavelli might call this strategic observation. Jung would call it individuation, the process by which a man becomes whole through self-understanding. The woman, in her natural energy, embodies what Jung called eros, connection, emotion, intuition, the realm of feeling. The man, on the other hand, often embodies logos, structure, reason, and direction. The union of these forces, both within and between individuals, is the goal of psychological harmony. When a man chases a woman without balance, he attempts to merge with her energy externally because he has lost contact with his own inner eros. When he reconnects with that energy inside himself, he no longer needs to chase. He attracts naturally. He becomes whole, and his relationships transform from dependency into partnership. Jung often warned that when a man fails to integrate his anima, she turns against him. She appears in dreams or relationships as chaos, seduction, or suffering. She pulls him into emotional extremes, obsession, jealousy, despair, forcing him to confront what he refuses to see. Many men experience this as heartbreak or betrayal, but psychologically, it is the soul demanding growth. The woman who breaks him is the mirror shattering so he can finally see himself clearly. Through that pain, he either evolves or repeats the same unconscious chase with someone new. The hunter, aware of this dynamic, moves differently. He does not run from emotion. He studies it. When he feels drawn to a woman, he asks, "What within me is she awakening? What have I denied in myself that her presence illuminates?" This reflective approach transforms attraction from addiction into alchemy. He is no longer trapped by infatuation because he understands that love is not merely about union with another, it is the path to union with the deeper self. Machiavelli's principle of strategy aligns with this psychological truth. The wise man observes patterns, not just people. He recognizes that every encounter holds insight. Power in this sense is not control over others, but mastery of one's own inner world. When a man knows his inner landscape, his wounds, his projections, his desires, he cannot be manipulated by external forces. He no longer confuses reflection for reality. The woman no longer becomes his obsession. She becomes his teacher. In the deepest sense, the woman a man is drawn to symbolizes the doorway to his own soul. But to walk through that doorway, he must stop chasing the shadow of her form and start hunting the truth she represents. He must descend into his own depths, into the silence of introspection, and face the parts of himself he has avoided. The courage to do so transforms attraction into awakening. Jung said that the meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. This transformation is the essence of the hunt. It is not about dominance or pursuit. It is about the alchemy that occurs when two souls mirror each other's hidden potential. The man who understands this no longer fears rejection, because he sees every encounter as a revelation of self. In this way, the woman is not the destination, but the compass. She points the man back toward his own lost wholeness, toward the integration of his heart and his mind, his reason and his passion, his strength and his tenderness. There exists a quiet but transformative shift in a man's life, the moment he stops seeking approval and begins living for vision. Approval is a cage built of invisible bars, forged by the opinions and expectations of others. Vision, on the other hand, is the path of freedom, purpose, and power. The difference between the two is not in effort, but in orientation. One looks outward, the other inward. A man who seeks approval looks constantly for mirrors to confirm that he is enough. A man who hunts vision moves forward regardless of who is watching, because his validation comes from alignment, not applause. To seek approval is to live reactively. It is to move according to the shifting winds of external perception. One day, approval gives you wings. The next, rejection breaks them. It is the psychological equivalent of chasing shadows. You are always running, but never arriving. Carl. Jung would interpret this as living under the tyranny of the persona, the mask we wear to gain acceptance in society. The persona is not inherently false. It is necessary for social interaction. But when a man begins to identify only with that mask, he loses touch with his deeper self. He becomes hollow, molded by expectation instead of intention. The hunter of vision is the opposite. He moves from the core of being, not the surface of appearance. His focus is not on pleasing, but on building. He does not ask, "Do they approve of me?" but, "Does this action move me closer to my purpose?" His compass is internal, guided by clarity of direction. This inner compass is what Machiavelli might call virtù, the power of character and will that allows a man to shape his destiny despite fortune's unpredictability. When this inner virtue aligns with vision, the man becomes unstoppable. Approval becomes irrelevant because his sense of worth no longer depends on anyone's permission. In every man there are two voices. The first whispers, "Be liked, fit in, be accepted." The second commands, "Be true, stand alone, be remembered." The first voice is loud when a man has no direction. It feeds on insecurity and comparison. The second voice grows only in silence, in solitude, in the act of facing oneself. The man who seeks approval spends his energy managing impressions. The man who hunts vision spends his energy manifesting purpose. The difference between the two is profound. One lives to be seen, the other lives to see clearly. Machiavelli would say that power cannot coexist with dependency. The moment you depend on others for validation, you give them control over your emotions and thus over your decisions. The seeker of approval is easy to influence because he fears disapproval more than he desires truth. He avoids conflict, softens his edge, dilutes his essence, all to remain likable. But likability is fragile. It evaporates the moment you stop performing for it. The man of vision, however, understands that leadership and authenticity often offend before they inspire. He does not fear disapproval because his allegiance is not to comfort, it is to destiny. Jung's psychology reveals that approval-seeking arises from an unhealed archetype within the psyche, the wounded child who longs to be seen and accepted. Many men carry this wound unconsciously. They try to fill it through achievement, relationships, or admiration, yet the hunger remains. The hunter of vision heals this, not by feeding the wound, but by transforming it into drive. He channels the need to be seen into the need to become. He stops asking for recognition and starts building something that commands recognition naturally. When a man commits to vision, his life reorganizes itself. His habits, his focus, his relationships all begin to align around purpose. He no longer invests time in empty approval loops because he understands the law of energy. What you chase runs away, but what you embody attracts. Approval is fleeting because it is dependent on external moods. Vision, however, endures because it is born from inner conviction. The hunter of vision wakes each morning with a sense of mission that transcends praise or criticism. The energy shift between these two states is immense. The seeker of approval radiates anxiety. His body language seeks permission, eyes darting for reaction, posture collapsing under uncertainty. His words carry the undertone of apology, as if saying, "Please let me belong." The hunter of vision, by contrast, carries a grounded calm. His presence speaks without words. "I belong wherever I stand." People are drawn to that energy not because it demands attention, but because it emanates certainty. This is Machiavellian influence at its highest form, the art of presence, not persuasion. The world unconsciously rewards those who operate from vision. Employers, partners, allies, and even strangers can sense authenticity. It is a vibration of coherence. When a man's words, actions, and purpose align, he becomes magnetic. This magnetism is not arrogance, it is resonance. Jung would interpret it as the integration of the self, the point where the conscious and unconscious unite, producing a life that feels inevitable, as though guided by an unseen current. The man of vision does not chase outcomes. He attracts opportunities through alignment. Approval-seeking, on the other hand, fractures the psyche. It splits a man into fragments, each piece performing for a different audience. One mask for work, one for friends, another for love. He exhausts himself, maintaining illusions, forgetting who he is beneath them. The hunter of vision needs no mask, because his identity is rooted in authenticity. He does not perform, he expresses. His actions stem from conviction, not reaction. He knows that approval may come or go, but purpose remains, and that consistency of purpose is what defines strength. To hunt vision is to live with a target deeper than comfort. It means to pursue growth even when no one applauds, to build silently while others seek applause loudly. It means to define success not by recognition, but by realization, how fully you have embodied what you were born to create. The approval seeker's motivation dies the moment praise fades. The visionary's motivation intensifies in solitude, fueled by the fire of inner necessity. Machiavelli would advise that true rulers build legacies, not reputations. Reputations are granted, legacies are earned. Likewise, the man of vision builds his life like a fortress, brick by brick, unseen until one day it stands unshakable. Approval cannot build such foundations, for approval changes with every generation, every trend, every fleeting moment of favor. Vision outlasts all of it because it is rooted in truth, not trend. In the Jungian sense, vision represents the call of the self, the psychological North Star that guides a man toward his highest potential. Ignoring it leads to stagnation and depression, for the soul rebels against living solely for external validation. Following it demands courage, discipline, and solitude, but it also grants power, the power to live freely, to speak truthfully, and to love deeply without fear of rejection. The hunter of vision walks a lonely path at first. There is silence, misunderstanding, even ridicule, but in that solitude he forges strength. He learns that freedom is not found in approval, but in alignment, not in applause, but in authenticity. As he moves forward, the world begins to bend toward him, not because he sought permission to move, but because he moved with conviction.